everyone. Welcome to our June Finance and Performance meeting. Welcome to everyone watching online. And we'll open this morning and I'll read the council prayer. Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions, and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen. So I have received an apology this morning from Leanne Hirati. No other apologies. So I move they be accepted. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Sharland. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried.
Madam Chair, through you, Leanne's apologised the last 2 or 3 times, is it?
Yes.
So at what stage do we either raise it or do we go back to Rupiag?
Yes. I think probably in the first instance, I'll get the person in contact and have a chat with you. Yeah.
No criticism, because I think she's a very good person and contributes.
Yeah.
But I think there's a group that
Yeah.
we are aware.
Item number 3 is the public forum, and I have not been notified of any public forum. Item number 4, conflict of interest declarations. Does anyone have any conflicts they'd like to declare now? If not, you're all aware of the normal procedure. If we're discussing matters and a conflict arises, please raise it at that time. Confirmation of order of business. There's no new items and the order is unchanged as per the order paper. Confirmation of minutes, page 5 of the order paper. Page 6. Yeah. Calling for any amendments or matters arising. Page 6, page 7, 8, 9, and 10. Yes.
I just had the funny feeling that I stepped out of this meeting to take a call or something for some time near the end, because the actions required around the footpaths and so on, I can't recall, but
I'm sorry, Your Worship, I was not at the meeting either, so I can't help there. Do we go back
I'm not noted as
and look
meeting,
at what's the process here?
We can go back and double check that.
I think there were sections of the meeting that I just near the end that I had to leave for some reason.
Thank you. We'll check that. Any other matters? Amendments? Can I please have a mover and a second to confirm those minutes?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Wong.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Morn. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Page number 11 is the follow-up items from previous meetings. It's got one left in progress there. Does anyone want to talk to that?
through the chair, that it's really is waiting for the end of the financial year, and we'll present it in the new financial year, so we can do the comparison of year on year on the rates remission as agreed at one of our meetings prior.
Thank you. Would like to
Through you,
raise
Madam
something?
Chair, just pointing out failures spelt wrong
Thank you.
in follow-up actions.
Anyone got anything else they'd like to bring up at this juncture? Okay, so I'll ask for the follow-up items to be received. We can move that. Seconder. Thank you, councillor Wong. All those in favour? Against, carried. So I've got a verbal chairman's report this morning. This afternoon, we look to adopting our 25-26 annual plan. I'd like to acknowledge the staff, effort and scrutiny to enable proposed average rates rise of 7.9%, well below the 9.9 originally anticipated. Thank you. We have a significant program of capital expenditure in front of us, and our challenge is ensuring these projects are kept on track and within budget. Some of these delays are outside our control, but we need to ensure that we reprogram our LTP as we can't expect to complete significant carry forwards on top of proposed work plans. We need to be realistic around our capability and workloads. On top of business as usual, staff have been required to work on local water done well, another huge workload with radical implications for our district. I look forward to 3 September when everyone's preferred positions are due to be lodged. Other significant bodies of work that are top of mind include changes to the RMA, rates capping on non-essential projects, and the future of local government and what our organisation might look like in 5 to 10 years' time. These are vital issues, and I encourage everyone interested to consider standing in the elections later this year. That's my report for this month. And I'd like to move that it be received. Seconded, councillor Sharland. All those in favour? Against, carried. Any questions or any discussion? Councillor
This will probably be brought up later on, but the 7.9% average rates increase, I take it as the increase in the budget that we are running for the revenue for the amount of expenses for the council. Does that take into account the increase in rating base?
Through the chair, yes, it does. We have not we have done our rates calculation that is based purely on what we needed in this current financial year of rates and what we need next year on rates. It doesn't allow for growth. There's no other factors. It is purely we have increased our rating revenue requirement by 7.9%. Our growth isn't significant. Where some councils who are going through, districts are going through very high growth increase may state that it's an increase excluding growth. It's to existing. Ours is pure and simple. This is the rates increase, and it is 7.9% on the year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to section 9, reports for information, and we've got the financial snapshot for May 2025, and we see that in the operational side of the business, revenue and expenditures tracking as predicted, and it's the as already mentioned, the capital expenditure that is not quite as we expected, but we'll talk to that, please.
I've just a couple of things to note, really. take it as read. Kia ora koutou, sorry, my apologies. Thank you. Not much has changed since our last report. Everything is tracking as Madam Chair has mentioned. Of note, the projected increase in debt. We've just drawn down $5 million tranche borrowing, which will take us to the total debt financial year end of external debt, that is, of 54 million. The other thing that was of note was our balanced budget ratio has fallen below benchmark of 100,000, which is what we anticipated. Year end. Sure. Any questions?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the report. This is a question really for those that get these reports, from wider circulation. And if I go to page 15 and I take the graph on total expenditure with the budget sitting against actual, if I take total expenditure to include the operational spend and capital spend, and then if you go to the following graph that says total capital expenditure, and you go to June and you say that the capital expenditure is 30 million under budget, the question people would quite rightfully ask, does that mean that because total expenditure is on budget, that the operational spend has gone up by 30 million to balance the lack of capital spend?
So what I'm suggesting is we retitle those two graphs, please, to
Operational revenue and operational expense. Noted.
Sure.
Because somebody reading this could rightfully come to that opinion. And I just think it would need to.
Thank you. Any other queries, comments? Councillor Vaughan.
I'm just going to the whole of council rather than on page 21.
Oh.
We're nearly near the end of the financial year. In the year to date, actuals were $2.2 million. $1.8 million ahead of, over budget. You got your 447 year to date and 2219 at the bottom. But at the far column on the full year budget is 1.7 million. Does that mean we're about $500 million overspend or out of kilter to the budget?
Through the chair, out of kilter.
Yeah, well, you go at the end, full year budget, we predicted a loss on operations of $1.7 million. At the moment, we're 2.2 million on the year to date actuals.
So through the chair, if you look at our total revenue, we're currently short by timing of 3.4 million.
Yep.
And our expenditure, however, is favourable by 1.6. So it is the phasing, and I think in particular it's our NZTA subsidy that is causing the delay, and that's reflected. We get the revenue, and that also funds capital as well. So it is really the timing of our revenue. If you go to your full budget, to your right, our expenditure is 56.8 million, and our revenue should be 55.1. So it is purely timing. We're favourable to our operational, but we're unfavourable to our revenue at the moment.
So over the next couple of months before the books are balanced, you expect it to come.
Correct. But we knew we were operating in an unbalanced budget.
Right.
In the LTP.
Thank you.
Councillor? Councillor Wong.
Go back to page 16 with the extra $5 million that was borrowed to increase our external debt to 54 million. I take it that borrowing was to pay for upcoming capital projects, which is the waterworks and was Martin. Oh, okay.
So it's our capital budget, we borrow for capital expenditure.
So-
And we had a budget off the top of my head, an expectation of around 73 million by the end of this year. And we're predicting this will actually end up at around, I don't think we'll be borrowing anymore in this financial year, given we're
Thank you.
June, end of June nearly now.
Just a clarification around that through you, Madam Chair. The 54 million was an expected position, whereas the current position is 49 less the assets. So net balance there about 30, because 5 or whatever it is.
We just borrowed the further 5, so the external is now 54.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, Councillor Loudon.
Thank you, Chair. Just further to Councillor Vaughan's query, if down on page 26, we're talking about the roading, and you've mentioned the timing difference with receiving subsidies. But then if you go and reflect back on the capital program, we are always underspending our capital by a significant amount according to budget. Does that timing issue remain all the time? And are we therefore being a bank for NZTA? Are we providing a banking service for them? It seems to be the extended sort of timeframe that this is going on for.
Through the chair, sorry. I don't believe we're operating as a bank as such. We get the expenditure in, and Mr. Bernardi can probably answer it better than me, but we get the expense in for OPEX and capital, and we pay the bills. And in the case of NZTA, we then submit our claims for that funding, which is no different to people who do the work for us and then submit their invoice, and we pay them the 20th of the following month. So no more so. Where it's a little bit different with NZTA is that the income in our P&L, our financial statements, is also for capital, whereas you don't see that for the majority of our capital expenditure. It is funded through depreciation or loan funding, kind of below the line. We typically spend all of our NZTA budget by the end of the year, so we see that money coming through, the final claims coming through in July. And we'll do an accrual and all of the right things, I'd imagine, to make that look right. Not to look right, but to reflect that.
The payment of NZTA bills, has that changed as far as the timeframe goes? Is it a monthly thing, or is it sort of pushed out a bit?
No, it's monthly, there's not changed.
That's good, thank you.
Yeah, look, I appreciate the thought, councillor, that we could be credited in advance in some way, because effectively that we're carrying the money for a month, sort of stuff. That's like, but what is more concerning to me is that whereas we spend all of our NZTA budget, because of some work that's not approved, we haven't spent our existing running budgets. And that's never a good look. And somehow we've got to realign NZTA's budgeting and decision processes with our own. And it is a common issue for LGNZ as a sector. Something that I've taken to NZTA directly on a couple of occasions.
As an aside, having been very fortunate to just have some time in great United States of America, I was intrigued that every roadworks sign, they've got this is your tax dollars at work, as a reminder to who's actually paying the bills here. I thought it was very effective.
You see many cones?
I didn't see many times. But some roads were shocking, in just different states. Yeah. Yes.
through the chair, can I also add that if we look to the right of that table and see the forecast for our roading and footpaths, noting that the annual plan budget was the one as the LT before NZTA made the changes. So if we go to the right and we've got a roading and footpaths budget of 7.6 million and we're sitting at 6.7.
Yep.
Any other discussion? So can I have a mover and a seconder for that report, please? Councillor Wilson, seconded Councillor Wong. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 9.2 is the standard QV report that you received. Is there any comments?
I'd just like to add one, and it's purely for the mayor, just to advise that I saw the latest report come through from building consents and comparing it with my what's coming through with QV. And my rates officer was really pleased to show me that everything that was coming through that was in motion was with QV. And other than a couple of 3 houses that have got a bit more work to do, we're nicely on track that everything will be included in our database when we set the rates.
Thank you.
Well done to the staff for making that happen at this time of the year. Yes.
I'll just note, I don't know where to raise this or point it out, but should we have noted within the finance reports that we've had a settlement of 2 properties?
Through the chair, that came up at Risk and Assurance the other day, and we're thinking about where's the best place to put that and how to put it. And I do wonder if it's part of our end of year when we'll talk about, I want to run a report that shows our outstanding rates this year compared to last year, both by dollars and number, and maybe in there refer to other things that have happened during the year if the mayor is okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely accept that, but I think somewhere we need to be able to say that these are the actions that we've taken as a council, and these are the outcomes, that we take these positions seriously.
Noted.
Thank you. Councillor Vaughan?
Just a question on rateable properties. I see in this QV report, we've got 44 extra total rating units. How many properties do we need to make a significant impact on spreading the rates? Was it on capital? It was more about capital value. You know how we always talk about if we've got a big industrial hub here, that could impact rates significantly by spreading the load.
Through the chair, I'll do my standard, it depends. It does depend on which rate you're talking about, like, so the collective, yes, but noting that we do some on capital value and some on annual or UAGC charges. So the more properties we get, the more we can spread the annual charges. The more capital value we get, the more we can spread the value of the roading and, you know, the ones that are capital value roading and general rate. But noting it's still the same bucket of money we're collecting. And so even if we still increase by 7.9%, it just means the way we slice the pie within that bucket of money might vary. And that's where we get really challenged when our revaluations come through. Does that make sense? We'd need quite a significant to really see a change, and we're not at that point at the moment.
Thank you.
Michelle?
Through you, I think from my point of view, when you ask about an actual number, it is really difficult. Because, for instance, if you took 80 homes and said average rate 3,000, so 240 around about 1% of rates. However, those 80 homes come at a cost. So balancing that cost provision against the capex, the rate income is difficult. But if you look at other districts, it's not so much about the number of homes, it's about in big industrial developments. And I made the point, south of Taranaki. for car rail, we're at third of the total car rail rate paid by two companies. Or three companies, pulp and paper mills there. South Taranaki has the dairy factories, et cetera, so they tend to be the bigger drivers.
Thank you. Councillor Carty, very.
I have an interest in the building consents, and you'll see that there's been 7 subdivisions put forward this month and 111 for the year. But as I said, there are subdivisions still being introduced into the system, be it sections being divided up.
Sure.
So that's, I don't think there'll be any big subdivisions as such, but it's good to see that there's still that activity still happening at the moment.
Right. There's no other discussion, then I'm happy to move that we receive that our QE monthly report. Seconder, please. Councillor Wong, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Welcome to the table, Sophia. So we're on page 35. No, item 1.3, public feedback and performance report for May 2025.
Morena Koto, take the report as read, as kind of just to loosely touch through the commentary on the first page. Big month in May in terms of ramping up local election promotion for us. Also note there around the Youth Awards held at the end of May, fantastic event, as I think we've all seen and heard. And just also wanted to note about the community hubs and some work that we've been doing with Jo and her team around increasing the profile of the community hubs across the community and encouraging their use beyond libraries. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions or discussion? Councillor Loudon.
Thank you. Just with local body government, local body elections coming up, and some of your engagements around that space, have you had any indications of much interest in people standing for council?
I think there definitely is a level of interest out there from what I've heard and seen. I think it's also our job to communicate why standing for local government would be a really worthwhile cause, because there's also a lot of concern around it as well. I think some of the media that's come out recently has talked about elected members like really high workload, their level of reports that you need to read and that kind of thing. There's also some concerns around level of abuse that you get from the public, which are all very valid reasons as to why people might not. So I would say that to date, the conversation has been a lot around the positives and negatives and kind of thinking about, whether it is the right thing, but there is definitely interest across the community. And one of the goals that we have for our campaign is to have contested seats across all of the wards.
Councillor Loud.
On that basis, I understand there are other councils, for example, that are running information evenings around and interviews with councillors, former mayors, other, as to what the role is on council, how they see it, so that people can talk to a person. Former councillors or mayors, is there anything like that?
Monday, 30th of June. Next Monday, we have 2 candidate information evenings with our electorate officer, Warwick Lamb. One's in Taihape at 4 p.m. at Kokako Street Hall, and the other one is in Martin in these council chambers, and it will also be live streamed. Publication of that to date has been, we've got Facebook events running in the paper come tomorrow. When the paper comes out, there is a whole page about the candidate information events, plus there's an email going out, and it will also be included across all of our other comms channels towards the end of this week.
Yeah, one of the issues that is often raised, for instance, there are some councils, you're quite right, that allow interviewing of councillors and mayor around what their role is and so on. The risk is that those people that are not existing mayors and councillors feel as though the councillor is given a profile. And that's the tricky interface. Yeah, really hard one, but through you, Madam Chair, also just in terms of when you talk about the abuse of people standing for these roles, the Remuneration Authority has just released money to be available to councils and community boards in terms of protection to the same extent that government officials are. I think it's 4,500 per member. And there was a news article in it. And if that news article in the paper this morning was correct, and I presume it is, that would supersede the remit going to local government New Zealand. Yeah. So it is a concern, and it has been seriously looked at in terms of government and local government.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Lawley.
In the information here, you've mentioned that, you know, the Rangitikei has 87% of its people enrolled in voting to vote. Traditionally, we sit in around the early 40s for voting in local government. Can you sort of outline your strategy to increase that number?
Absolutely. So just to give a bit of, I guess, backstory around how the local election campaign normally runs across the country. So we have an enrol period, which is just coming to the end this week. Then we begin a stand period. We've chosen this year to focus greatly on the stand period because in our view, if you've got an engaged level of candidates standing for election, you've got good debate across the board, then you're more likely to have more voters engaged to vote. Given, if you think about the last election, we had 3 ward seats that were won uncontested. It doesn't give you much of an encouragement as a voter to get out and vote. So for us, focusing on stand, getting the messaging out there about why local government is important and why we should be engaging in local government, particularly for potentially younger people thinking about whether local government's the right thing for them. We think will have a flow-on effect through into voting in terms of people getting out to vote because they're engaged, because they see themselves and the people that are putting themselves forward around the council table. So that's a really key part of our election campaign. The other part is previously we've had about 3 orange bins that have existed around the district, and we've upped that by 10. So this campaign will have 13 bins around the district. Obviously, you could, of course, also post your ballot in a post box as well, but just kind of getting the visibility of elections happening out and about and around the district, I think will really help increase engagement and get people talking. Obviously, supporting that as well across all of our other channels. Now you'll see from now until voting day on the 11th of October that will really ramp up and talk about a lot of things around why local government is important.
Thank you.
This election period also coincides with a referendum in terms of Maori wards, and that in itself may well be seen as contentious throughout the country. So focusing just on the election of councillors and mayor, how are you going to handle the issue of Maori wards, which may be more contentious?
Agree. So we've done quite a lot of thinking about that, and we've engaged with Fran, who's our Mana Whenua strategic advisor, on how the best to present it, obviously in a politically neutral way, is how we need to present. And so the way that we're talking about Māori wards is in the context of representation. So why representation is important across the board, how representation is represented in Rangitikei District Council at present, is that we have the councillors that sit around this table and they represent different parts of the Rangitikei community. So it's more talking about how representation, and part of the representation currently is Māori wards. You can leave that up into a question as to, you know, whether or not that becomes a conversation, but we leave it at the point of representation. On top of that, I think it's really important that, because this is where kind of ideas of misinformation and disinformation can come into play. So also really important that we have the key facts and figures out there and available. And so we've got a frequently asked questions document that just provides some facts around what Māori wards are and what they do for the community, how they've served in the past, and what the referendum looks like and what questions that will be asked. But happy for any other suggestions.
Councillor Loudon.
this report. In the Facebook, you've said that the post with the most engagement was the Martin Swim Centre, and there were 74 reactions and 53 comments. Can you share some of those reactions and comments regarding the Martin Swim Centre?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with anything, one of the great things about social media, I think in the way that Ben has set up, the way that he runs it, is that we really encourage that two-way communication. So often what you'll see in the comment section of any post and something like Martin Swim Centre that is quite contentious is you do get the positive and the negatives, and we actually have a little bit of a conversation around it. I think feelings around the Martin Swim Centre is, and the release that came out was, we're broadly excited about the fact that the swim centre is going to be open, but equally wanting to have conversations about what the future could look like. Is there more opportunity for future development and that kind of thing? But no, to wrap up the entire sentiment, I would never say that it's 100% positive, because it never will be. I would say broadly positive towards council's decision to move forward on the Martin.
Thank you.
I'd just like to acknowledge several comments around the cleanliness of our toilets, and thank you to those staff. Great to see. Okay, so can I please have a mover and a second for receipt of that report? Thank you, councillor Loudon, seconded councillor Maughan. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And that is the end of our meeting this morning. Thank you very much for your time.